or to make just about anything.
I made it to the next level.
And now's the time to call 1-800-331-4055 to make the ultimate computer your own. Because with the fastest Intel Pentium 2 processor available, 5X DVD-ROM, and 17-inch monitor, you can make more than you ever imagined for less than you thought.
I made a smart investment.
Just a little bit of rain to show you today on Storm Watch, sort of on the corners. Northwest, northeast rain's increasing, and in Florida we may have some thunderstorms developing. We'll check that out in just a moment, but we want to start off with your tropical update, and for that we have Dr. Steve Lyons.
Well, thank you, Jill, and welcome to the tropical update. Let's get started way out in the western Pacific for anybody who's traveling in that general direction. We have a very dangerous situation here. Here's Typhoon, I should say Super Typhoon Zeb, zeroing in on northern Luzon Island of the Philippines. This typhoon now has winds of 180 miles per hour with gusts to 220 miles per hour. Extreme damage potential here. This will level just about any house that's typically built in America unless it's extremely well built. And there's a little bay right up here called Limon Bay, and we've seen a little wobble or two in here. As it comes closer to Limon Bay, it could produce a huge storm surge. We can zoom in on that a little bit closer, and here we go here. The bay is right up in here. As the eye tracks this way, if it goes just south of Limon Bay, we could have a storm surge as high as 30 feet or more in that area. So if you know of anybody that's there, tell them to evacuate the coast immediately if they haven't already done so. Very, very dangerous situation. Well, let's move back into the eastern Pacific a little bit closer to home. We'll see what we've got going on there. We now have Hurricane K. Here are the latest coordinates as of 2 p.m. 16.1 north, 118.9 west. That's about 740 miles southwest of Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, which is about right here. And it's not going to threaten Cabo San Lucas at all. Winds are minimal hurricane force, moving west-northwest at 3. That's almost an ill-defined motion, very, very weak motion. We have a visible satellite picture here, and you can see it right here. You may see a little speck in the middle and think, oh, there's an eye. Well, there has been an eye off and on all day, but the speck you see there near the end of the image loop is actually a shadow from a very tall thunderstorm, and the sun is casting a shadow on the downwind side of that thunderstorm, producing that little dark spot there in the loop. What you can see here is this is really a very, very tiny circulation with some very, very dry air, stable air moving into it from the north. So it's not really any major concern to anybody unless you're in a ship or vessel going through there. Then you don't want to be anywhere near it, of course. As you look farther out in the scheme of things in the tropical Pacific, we have 3 systems. Both of these two are rather big clumps of thunderstorms trying to develop into tropical depressions. This one's likely to affect Cabo San Lucas in the next couple days with at least some rain. But here's our hurricane out here, very, very minimum size compared to the other. So fairly active in the tropical eastern Pacific and the western Pacific. Closer to home, we're in great shape. We have upper-level westerlies in the Gulf of Mexico, upper-level westerlies in the Caribbean Sea, upper-level westerlies all across the Atlantic, and what that means, no tropical development at all. But let's zoom in a little bit anyway and see what we've got. See some high clouds and some thunderstorms in the extreme southwestern Gulf of Mexico. Been looking at this disturbed weather area over here in the southwestern Caribbean because that's a preferred area for development, but no development occurring right now there with those strong upper-level westerlies. We had the tropical wave impacting on an upper-level trough. That's fairly stationary and producing anywhere from 2 to 4 inches in the Windward Islands. And farther off, as we go toward Africa, strong westerlies impacting anything that comes off the coast. So we're in great shape there as well. So nothing to worry about in the Atlantic. Let's get back to Jill and see what weather she's got going on the United States continent.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And actually, it looks like there's nothing to worry about at home either. But we will have more rain developing in the northeast. You can tell not any real thick, heavy cloud cover here. In the northern Rockies, it looks a little bit worse, but in reality, there's not a whole lot of activity here. We'll take you to a couple of spots. First off, how about down into Florida? And you can see we had some rain yesterday. That's the estimate of precipitation yesterday. Today just hasn't accumulated too much, so we're in pretty good shape. Tomorrow, we may once again in Florida have a few scattered showers. Doesn't look like anything too rough. Never really developed into much this afternoon. Rain continues to come in to places like Seattle and Portland and up into the mountains. We'll probably have a little bit more snow. But it's here in the Northeast that we're most concerned about, because as this area of low pressure goes up into Canada and the trailing front comes along the coast, the rain's already increasing. As a new area of low pressure develops, we'll have more widespread, steady, perhaps even some heavy rain in the Northeast coming up in the next couple of days. We'll talk more about it on Weather Center.
Wet weather lingers in the Northwest and rain threatens parts of the Northeast. When and where showers are likely, next on Weather Center after your local forecast.
Base Camp Forester, report.
Me? I'm doing great. This Subaru Forester is a blast to drive. It's got a lot more horsepower than a CR-V. This all-wheel drive goes through anything. Handles easy as a cart.
Yes, I know all about the Forester. I meant your mission. Did you rendezvous with your partner?
Oh, she's gonna pay for this.
Subaru Forester. Sport utility tough. Car easy.
Test drive the beauty of all-wheel drive at a Subaru dealer near you.
This edition of Storm Watch is sponsored by America Online. Well, there's a minimum of thunderstorm activity here in the United States, I'm glad to say, though there is some lightning in the sky in New York State and Pennsylvania. We'll have a look at that here in just a minute. But the big story here on the globe is a super typhoon. This is Super Typhoon Zeb. Color-enhanced satellite imagery shows the eye of the hurricane making landfall right now, which would be on Wednesday afternoon here in the Philippines. This is Taiwan, perhaps the next island in line for the onslaught of a super typhoon. Now, what's a super typhoon? Well, a typhoon is a hurricane. That's just what they call it here. It's from the Japanese, meaning great wind. Tycoon is another English word that comes from the Japanese, meaning great prince. Typhoon is a tropical cyclone with 74-mile-per-hour winds or greater. A super typhoon has sustained winds of 150 miles per hour or greater. This super typhoon, Zeb, has winds sustained at 180 miles per hour with wind gusts to 220 miles per hour. So essentially, this hurricane, the core of which is probably about 100 miles wide, is generating tornado force winds and will wipe out everything in its path here in the extreme northern edge of the island of Luzon. These are the Philippines right here. And here's Quezon City and Manila. So they're just getting some peripheral effects here. It's up here. We'll see pictures in the newspapers from this in the next day or two. 180 mile per hour sustained winds. Then the forecast calls for this as we expand out just a little bit. There is a frontal boundary that stretches across China right now with the upper level low spinning over Manchuria. These westerly winds will draw this thing northward, very close to or perhaps making impact on Taiwan. Now, this will weaken as it moves across the mountains of northern Philippines, then reemerge out here, strengthen somewhat, and then hit Taiwan in 48 to 72 hours. After that, well, we'll see what happens. That's the big story in the tropics on the globe. Where else are you going to see this kind of stuff but on the Weather Channel? We're geeks, and we're interested in this. This is the strongest tropical cyclone on the face of the earth this year. Now, there is another hurricane here. This is closer to home. This is Hurricane K. Still maximum sustained winds 75 miles per hour. This is like a walk in the park compared to that other super typhoon that we saw. This is drifting slowly westward at a walking pace and is forecast to remain a hurricane, a minimal hurricane, over the next couple of days, but it's of no threat to anyone. Meanwhile, we're monitoring some more disturbed weather off the Mexican coast and out here over the Gulf of Tehuantepec. Elsewhere in the Atlantic Basin, very strong westerly winds, even though there have been showers and an elongated area of low pressure that extends back into the western Caribbean. Nothing is organized, I'm glad to say. As we head further out into the Caribbean, well, the showers are just about over. A tropical wave moved westward and encountered a brick wall in the form of an upper-level low-pressure area. That provided some instability and some nice diffluence aloft, and there were a lot of showers here, but the rain is tapering off now in the Caribbean islands. And off the coast of Africa, another cluster way off to the south, but tropical waves that move off of Africa this far south this late in the year never develop and make it all the way to the United States. So in the Atlantic Basin, it's quiet. Here in the United States, you might be drawn to a big swath of clouds here, but there's no precipitation falling from those at all, at least for the time being. Here in the Northeast, however, there is, and there have been some thunder and lightning out here in Syracuse, New York, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. This is all moving eastward, so wet weather is on tap for Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, at least in the morning. And as we head west, we find some remnants of some rain showers here in western Washington. So the rough weather is on the east and west coasts of the U.S. The forecast is up next.
Wet weather lingers in the northwest and rain is in store in parts of the east. We'll show you where to expect a wet Wednesday on Weather Center after your local forecast.
This program was sponsored by America Online. The future now available.
America Online introduces new version 4.0.
There has never been a better time to get online.
The easiest just got easier.
Instant messages.
I can customize my email.
My niece sent me a picture.
If you have a phone line, you can be online. It's the easiest way to keep up with old friends.
Everyone I know is on it.
We've spent over $1 billion to create a high-speed network, and with 56K, connections are faster than ever.
It's the ultimate local guide.